So my talk is called Design to Learn and Learn to Design. Hi, I'm Elizabeth. It's nice to meet all of you. I'm going to do a little introduction and I'll kind of like go into like the more talk portion of today. Here's a small peek at my background. Places I've worked at like really big companies doing internships, worked at Khan Academy for a long time, which is one of my favorite companies I've worked at, mostly because I just love working in education and kind of seeing how like tools can help children learn. I worked at a place called Lambda School where I was running a lot of their online education, specifically for their design program. Worked at another education company called Primer, which is also education related, focused more on developing tools for students to get to know each other online. And then 3 years ago, I started something called Design's a Party, which I'm calling an alternative design school, which is basically a fancy way of saying like I run my own classes online and anyone can sign up for them. And really, it's a way for me to kind of showcase how I like to teach and how I want to learn design. And so, over the last few years, I've been teaching visual design through my course, The Art of Visual Design, and also prototyping with Cursor, which I released last year, that focuses on showing designers how to work with tools like Cursor. I also release a lot of like free content that's probably useful for students, and so I wanted to plug it here, but I have like a lot of stuff for like how can I get into product design? How do I do my portfolio? If you somehow follow me online, I got pretty popular last year doing a lot of like portfolio reviews, kind of like roasting people's portfolios online. So there's a lot of like that content if you want to go check it out later. I'm based in New York City, and so if any of you find yourselves out here in the summer or after you graduate, I run a lot of events here, and that's what I've been spending a lot of my time doing now. And so this is one of the events I hosted most recently. I'm happy to talk about any of that during the Q&A. I'll be touching on it sometime in this talk, but today I'll be mostly talking about my learnings from learning and teaching design. So a lot of my career has been focused on education and teaching people design, and I feel like I've learned a lot about the best ways to learn design, and so hopefully you'll find something useful from this talk and maybe add it to your own practice. So today we'll be trying to answer like two general questions. How can you continue to grow and learn as a designer? If especially like once you're out of school, there's like so much going on. And so how can you continue to learn and grow? And then also, how can you keep up with rapid changes in the industry? I know everyone's talking about AI, but at the end of the day, like design tools are always changing. We've moved from like Photoshop, Illustrator to Sketch to Figma to whatever. And so like at the end of the day, things are always changing. And so I'll be touching on this as well. So gonna be touching on like these 7 things. Just make things, teach to learn, build a community, know the why, learn to unlearn, and just make things. I promise each of them is kind of short, so it's not I'm gonna go through like a really, really long monologue for each one. And yes, just make things is actually repeated on purpose. It's not a mistake in my slide. But we're gonna go ahead and start with my first learning, which is just make things. So I wanted to talk a little bit about my design origin story. So, like many people on the internet, I grew up with something called Neopets. If you're not familiar with Neopets, it's basically like this like online website where you can like take care of a pet and you basically like kind of like live life there. Some people got really into like the stock market. Some people got really into like playing these games. But what I got really into was making these little graphics for my little pet website. And I ran like this little guild where I would like make graphics for people and I would make these in like Microsoft Paint, and I always thought it was really, really fun. The really cool thing about Neopets was that it actually let you design like these websites using like HTML and CSS. So this is kind of what the editor looked like. You would go in and then you would like write things and be able to edit the CSS, and then you could make stuff like this. This was not made by me. This was something I found online today, but you could like create like some really cool things. And really, this is how I got started on the internet. Was I was just like making random things on the internet for fun because and like kind of typing things and seeing what would happen. And it was really what got me into computers in the first place. Going off of making new things, I found this today when I was like digging around for random things on my computer, but I would like always like open up like random things, like websites. So I remember discovering Wix in high school and I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. Like, what is Flash, whatever. And I like made this like random portfolio thing. And you can tell like I haven't like done any like a formal design education yet. I kind of like threw things together and was like having a lot of fun. Um, in high school, I got accepted into the school paper as a designer. And I remember opening the computer and we had to use InDesign. And I was like, oh, what is this tool? Like Illustrator? I don't know what it is. And so I remember opening it and trying it out. And one of the first, oh, actually, this is not the right side, but I remember like going through and like looking up like random YouTube videos and just like trying to make things based on Illustrator because I was like, what's this cool new tool? Playing around with things every day. And so I joined the paper and I remember like using Illustrator for the first time and I made this ridiculous thing that would probably like get me roasted in like a college course. But I was like, oh my God, like what is this swirl tool? I was like, what if I put everyone around this circle and then like made this like chaotic design? And it was a good time. Very, very fun. These are some of my other early designs. I always love showing early designs because it kind of shows progression. And so save all your work because then 10 years from now, you'll look back and be like, oh no. Or even like maybe a few months from now. So I look back at this time fondly because I think it was a time when I was really like playing with the tools and just kind of like seeing what would happen. I didn't know what any of the rules were, and I was really just like making cool things because I thought they were fun and cool. And so the learning from this section is um, remember, go back to the first time where you like were using a design tool for the first time or drawing something. And just like challenge yourself to make something every day. I think one of the biggest ways to learn is to just keep making. And that's how I learned in the early days. So I was like following random tutorials. I was trying to learn a new tool. I was trying to replicate a cool effect I found online. And I remember sitting in the back of lectures sometimes trying to like replicate like some weird metal effect on my computer and really just like design every day. I think that's like one of the best ways to learn is to continue designing. So that's learning number one. Just make things, don't overthink it. It's okay if it's ugly. It's really about the practice of making fun things. Okay. I will also say that this is not a chronological story, so some things might be feel like they're coming out of random parts. So the next section is teach to learn. So this picture is from this club I was a part of in college called Innovative Design. I was part of like this group where we would design like logos and stuff and posters for other students groups on campus. And this was like me in freshman year. I was like, wow, I look so young. And the reason why I show this photo is because I basically, after my freshman year, this senior was like, hey, like you should take over this like Illustrator and Photoshop class that this other senior's teaching. We need someone to teach it. And I kind of like panicked. I was like, oh, I've never taught before. I can't do this. Like, why are you asking me to do this? But because they were like this like wise, cool senior, I was like, okay, I guess I'll do it. And so I remember going back and it was like winter break. I'm from Iowa City, so this is the Iowa City Public Library. And I went to the public library and I checked out this book because I don't know, people still learn from books back then. And I read every single page of the Illustrator CS5 Bible. And I took like really detailed notes and I was like, I need to become like the biggest expert in Illustrator ever because I need to teach all these people Illustrator. And some context is that this class was a decal at my school. And so decal is basically like a class that students teach and other students can take for credit. So they can take it for like 1 to 2 credits per semester. And so basically this senior was like giving me the class, but I looked at the curriculum and I didn't like it. So then I was like, I'm going to redesign it. And so I basically created like these detailed lesson plans. I made these in InDesign, which seems like so much work now. Looking back at it, I'm like, why did I make this in InDesign? I wish Notion existed. Based on all the research I did online and through like the Illustrator CS5 Bible. And I learned so much because I was like doing so much research at the time. This is kind of like a screenshot of like what the class looked like. It was like basically me teaching in the front, but then like running around and trying to debug things on people's computers. And to this day, I know exactly how to get rid of this on every single person's computer. But I like to point this out because I think as like an educator, when you're like teaching things, especially like tools, it's kind of funny because you start becoming like an expert in like all the little different edge cases. And then people think you're a magician because they'll be like sitting there like something weird came up on my screen. And I'll be like, oh, try Shift P. And they're like, whoa, it disappeared. And so it was like a really fun learning experience for me that I didn't even expect to be a learning experience because during every single class, I felt like I was helping people troubleshoot. I was learning more about how the tool worked just because of all the different interesting situations people would get into. And also, I felt like I had to challenge myself to understand more deeply how certain things worked. So from this experience, I really am like, whoa, like teaching is the best way to learn. And I think if anyone has taught before, they also, I feel like people say this all the time, but it truly is. It's also like, I think the most fun way to learn because then you also get to see like whoever you're mentoring or your students, and you can kind of like watch them grow and be able to create whatever they want to. I had a little bit of an aside to this that I deleted, but I'm going to say anyway. Also, from this learning experience, what I learned was that the tool should like never be a barrier to anyone who is trying to like become a designer or try to make their dreams become a reality. And so I think this has influenced a lot of how I teach today, where I always try to make sure that everyone is like 100% ready to use the tool because they should be able to make any idea they want to come to life without like struggling with how to use it. So I think like for all of you in the room, like tool proficiency is really important, and getting fast and knowing how to create anything you want is sometimes more important than you think. Okay, number three, build a community. So I went to Berkeley. Um, there I studied computer science because I thought that I wanted to do something called computer graphics. Because I think growing up, I was like, oh, like that has to do with like design, like graphics and design. And then I got there and then I was like, oh, graphics is all math. I don't want to do that. I got really involved with like different student groups on campus because at the time there wasn't an official design program on campus yet. And so I mentioned this group earlier, but this is a kind of like an image of the club I was in called Innovative Design. This is actually, I think, maybe my junior year, where this was an info session for that same class I showed that I was teaching before. There was just so much interest in people wanting to learn like Illustrator and Photoshop on campus. And so this was kind of info session for people to like get into the student run course. And this group was really what taught me design, and all the students that were a part of this organization, we would give like feedback to each other and we would all like give workshops to each other. And so I think through this group, I really realized like how important community is and learned that community is so important to the learning process. We hosted a bunch of events on campus as well, like different design-a-thons, so that students could kind of practice designing for like real world use cases. Looking back, so this is kind of like a abrupt transition, but looking back, I was like, wait a second, like all my excitement of community didn't really translate into that first class I ever taught. One of the students I'm still friends with today, um, she told me, she was like, yeah, like no one ever talked to each other in that class. Like I learned so much, like I feel like I learned exactly how to use the tool, but we like never talked to each other. And that's really stuck with me because I feel like since then I've like grown so much in that like I've been like, wait a second, like community and like student engagement with each other is like actually one of the most important parts to teaching. In At my first job at Khan Academy, my manager introduced me to Bell Hooks, and I read like all her books. And the reason why I bring her up is because I think she's been really impactful to how I teach today and also how I like to approach a lot of my workshops and learning experiences. This is one of the quotes from her book, Teaching Critical Thinking. When everyone in the classroom, teacher and students, recognize that they are responsible for creating a learning community together, learning is at its most meaningful and useful. So after this job at Khan Academy, I fast forward to my second job. This is where I joined Lambda School to run a program with 100 plus design students. Um, for these students, they're basically trying to transition into roles in tech, mostly product. My program was specifically product design or UX design, and then other people were doing like engineering and stuff. So this school was all online. And so when I started, because I had literally just come fresh off of reading all these things, I was like, okay, like I'm gonna make like a huge effort to make sure that from day one, the driving principle for me running this program is going to be making sure that all the students feel like they're part of a community. And so here are like some concrete examples of things I did. So for the first class, every time there's like a new cohort, we would like go in to Figma. Thank God for Figma because Figma is great for collaboration. Going to Figma and I had everyone create like this like little card of themselves to kind of give me some insight about themselves and then also have them get to know each other a little bit. We did a lot of exercises in class that really don't like, I guess from like a UX or product design standpoint, it doesn't feel that useful, but I always do some sort of like warm up before any sort of like exercise or thing that we did. This one was a fun one where I gave everyone like four colors and I was like, okay, we're gonna make a quilt. Like, let's just like have fun for a second before diving into some of our serious business stuff. I got really into during this time, I got really into hosting these like jumbo workshops with like 80 people in Figma where we would like go through a series of exercises together. I realized that Figma is actually like amazing for these kind of like collaborative experiences. So instead of having everyone download a Figma file or copy it, I would just throw us all into the same room and then we can all watch each other struggle a little bit. It did kind of crash Figma sometimes, but I think the act of having like everyone's cursors in one place really, really helped a lot and really kind of mimicked that in-person interaction. A lot of these practices really like surprisingly helped me during COVID because I had already experimented with this. And so then during COVID, I was like, oh, this is so easy. Like I can just continue doing this and helping us like stay connected. Yeah, so I guess like some general things that I was thinking about. Community is important because like enables meaningful discussion. Like people are more likely to like say meaningful things and participate if they all know each other a little bit better. Also, as an educator, like it's really scary if like someone who's like in a position of power like gives you feedback, but through like the community exercises, which I would also participate in, I feel like it really helped my feedback feel like less scary. It was more like, hey, I'm trying to help you become a better designer. Obviously makes the learning experience more engaging and also helps with retention as well, especially if you're running more of like a community event in a community space. And so today I still do a lot of these community things because it's something that I really care about. And you can see in the background here, there is a jumbo Figma file as well. Okay, the next learning is know the why. This is the old like Animal Crossing screenshot. So as I continue teaching, I realized that I was teaching like students how to like do something, but at a deeper level, sometimes understanding the reasoning was kind of like a different level of teaching and understanding and learning. And so I was became really interested in trying to figure out how to help like design students understand the why behind design decisions, especially like articulating their design decisions. So it's like really easy to like go in and like follow the rules and like make something with a grid. But then it's also at the end of the day, it's like, okay, but why am I doing this? And so I have spent a long time like thinking about how to add that more to the process. And I show this here because this is kind of an example of like people copying each other. This is like the old linear website where all these companies were copying the same website, but I was like, I don't think they understand why this is good design. They're just like copying it. And so I really wanted to challenge my students to try to like understand deeper why people like this website so much. So yeah, how do I teach students the whys behind design decisions? So this is an exercise that I like to share. This is an objectively terrible design. I had a lot of fun making it. I was like, I'm just gonna misalign everything and see what happens, change all the colors. And the reason why I did this exercise is because I wanted all the students to have like an easy starting point for explaining the why, because I think it's easier when it's like there's a lot of like really obvious things that are wrong. And so I had them like share things for what I should do next. So But the only caveat was that every time they shared something, they had to explain why I should change it. And so this is an exercise that I've used quite a bit for a lot of my different courses now. Sometimes I'll do like a live design demo too, where I'll like go through and like design it live, and have them have myself make the changes along the way. Um, but this is like a fun example of like me trying to help students understand the why through like an exercise that seems kind of silly, but it's a little bit less scary than starting with a design that is like really, really good. This one's another exercise that I've used before, where also collaborative Figma one, where we kind of have like different examples of like excerpts on the left side. And I have students try to articulate like two things, basically practicing what works well and what can be improved. And so this seems really simple, but at the end of the day, like I think having like low stakes ways of practicing articulating yourself before you get to the workplace kind of helps you kind of understand at a deeper level, like why something might work better than another thing. So I guess like from a learning design perspective, this is something I see a lot, especially with designers trying to get a job after college, is practice articulating your design decisions every single day. I've interviewed so many designers, entry-level designers for roles, and a lot of times what sets the best entry-level designers from the rest is that they're so good at articulating like why they decide to do something. And so like practice like talking out loud every day, like, oh, I chose black because this, like I chose green because it represents like nature and my app is about nature. Like saying things like that every single day will really help you improve your understanding of the why. And don't be afraid to articulate it out loud because it really takes practice. And then also the second thing is to think deeper about why you actually like something, especially for designers who are really intuitive driven, like I am personally very intuition driven. It was my first internship where my manager was like, you need to like explain to us why this works well. And her saying that to me really helped me practice understanding like the deeper reason behind why my preferred design was the better one outside of intuition. And so one of the first exercises in the art of visual design is I have students create mood boards. One of them is like their personal style. And then I have them kind of reflect at a high level on like the themes they see across their personal style. So people be like, oh, like I noticed I actually really like a lot of these like orange hues for some reason. And then I also have them reflect on their anti-style and kind of at a high level, like kind of think about like which specific elements they don't like. And so a lot of it is like having kind of forcing you to like sit there and like look at the things you have and then also analyze them. Okay, that's the end of that section. The next one is learn to unlearn. This one is kind of interesting because a lot of what I'm talking before was more like focused on like learning, but learn to unlearn. So when you're learning design, you're like, you learn all the rules. You're like, okay, this is what I should do with letter spacing, or not do with letter spacing. You learn about like grids and columns and etc. But you kind of get to a point where you're like, wait a second, like can I learn to do stuff that's not that? And I think a lot of designers reach a point where they're like, wait a second, I kind of want to like go back to a world of design where I kind of got to explore things in a more fluid way. And so here are some of my thoughts on teaching this specifically. Um, the reason why I've thought a lot about this is because my class, the Art of Visual Design, is actually divided into two parts. So the first part is the rules, and the second part is called Break the Rules. And so the first part is really tailored to like, okay, here is like what like traditional design education, Bauhaus, Swiss, whatever. This is how they teach you to design, and this is kind of what like if you wanted to work at Apple, like they expect this out of you. The second part is really about like if you want to kind of like push things forward in a different way and how you might explore it. And so I kind of wanted to explore both in the class because I feel like most schools and classes explore only one. And I think it's important to also learn how to like, kind of like break the boundaries and like try new things outside of the norm. Okay, so the first thing here is to try diversifying your research. Um, this is a stack of books I was using for another talk I was giving, but one of the best ways to, I would say, like learn new things outside of what you maybe have learned before is to like go out and like go to the library, find some random books, find some random things and just like do some research. I think right now, especially with how much content is on the internet, it's so hard to find um, good inspiration. It's so hard to find things that haven't been like filtered through the feed. And a lot of times, like going back to like first principles and finding like sources and just like sitting down with a book. Like I recently read Fantasy by Bruno Munari and I ran a workshop on it. It was so much fun, and you really got to like figure out like how to break outside of the boundaries just from reading the book. And so, highly recommend you can go to the library and check some stuff out, especially since you're in school. I think there's some really great resources there. Another thing that I did while I was doing research for this was I like emailed the Cranbrook Academy of Art and I like asked them if I could get some stuff from their like archives, and they sent me back like a bunch of scans of their like design department guidelines from like 1970s. So you can really ask for a lot of things and you can get them, which is really cool. And I like went through and like dove through all of them and kind of got a really good understanding of like how the school worked and like how their processes were different and stuff like that. Another thing for learning to unlearn, learn to explore the ugly. So one of my favorite exercises to do is I like to have students explore the opposite of like what they might have been taught to do in the past. So like instead of using one typeface, maybe try using like many and see what happens. Use like 6 colors and see what happens. And it's okay if it's ugly because maybe you'll take like one idea from it and be able to convert it to something more interesting for your current project. Like a lot of times I feel like we're like stuck in the bounds, and then if you want to like break out of it, it's hard. And so don't be scared to explore the ugly. Expand your sources of inspiration. Um, you can find inspiration in everything. I think dribble is actually kind of a curse. Dribble kind of makes you like everything kind of look the same. Look at things like fashion. Supposedly Rei Kawakubo, designer at Comme des Garçons, she like took a crumpled piece of paper and was like, here, like make a dress. So you can try to find inspiration from everything. I recently went to see the Sagrada Familia, so that's why this is here. But you can like look at architecture, look at anything. You don't have to look at UI design to get inspiration for design. This is an example of an exercise I did in one of my classes where we took this random image of a peacock and then we tried to make menu designs based on the peacock. And so it's like kind of chaotic, but it was just like, we're like, what if we made a layout based on this peacock and kind of saw what happened? But yeah, learn to learn. Don't be afraid to break the rules. You can always follow the rules later. It's okay. Especially with the computer, you can just like do whatever you want and then things will happen. Okay. So that brings me back to just make things. The reason why I wanted to end again with just make things is because with AI changing the landscape of design, how can you keep learning? And I think with a lot of AI tools, especially since I use them so regularly, one of the reasons why I got so excited about like tools like Cursor last year was because it reminded me of the early days of the internet where I would like type random stuff in and then like something would happen and I wasn't sure what it was going to be. And that level of magic really feels very similar to the early days of the internet where you could just make things and things would happen. And there's no rules yet. No one has created any rules. Design teams are still trying to figure it out. And so that's what makes me so excited about the current landscape of design. So yeah, just make things. I've been making a lot of things. You can make like whatever you want. With AI tools, I made like this. Oh, the video is not playing, but I made. Oh, now it's playing. I made this like game called like Font Guesser, where you can like guess the Google font, and then it gives you like a breakdown of the Google font, and it gets harder and harder. Another thing I made was this prompt generator where you can like kind of decide if you want practical or imaginative design prompt. This is also help generated with the help of Cursor. I made this quiz called, it was called like Define Your Aesthetic. And basically it would, you take a quiz and then it gives you like a star chart. based on your design aesthetic. And this is like one of my favorite projects I made recently because without the help of Cursor, I actually don't think I could have made this like visual come to life so quickly because I would have had to do math, which is something I don't love doing. But what I did was I basically like drew the sketches out in Figma. I sent it to Cursor and I was like, hey, I want the stars to get traced around this like axis, and then it should be kind of like randomized and dots and stuff like that, and then randomly draw the lines. And after about like an hour of like kind of struggling, this was maybe like 2024 fall, so it was kind of early in Cursor days. It like suddenly worked, and I was like, "What?" Like, it did the thing, and so it was really cool. And then more recently, I made like a little design bookshelf. So this is like a collection of all the design books I have in my apartment. And then I connected it with Notion, and then I was able to kind of like put it all together. You can make things for yourself now. And so I think you should definitely try it out. And this is one more thing. I made like a little page with all my travel guides, also linked to Notion database as well. And so basically, the short version is challenge yourself to explore a new tool every week, make something for fun. Um, these AI tools are so easy to like use. There's this like a chat box, and you can dream up whatever you want. Don't be too scared. If you like type something and it's not something that's for you, then you can always like try something else. But I highly recommend challenging yourself to try one of these new tools at least once a week. People are always asking me like, how do I keep up? And it's because I'm always trying to make fun new things every day. And if you make things for yourself, sometimes it's a lot easier than trying to make things like for like a user or a product. Like you can always like make random little fun things for yourself. But yeah, here's a summary of all the little learnings. I know it's like a little bit like all over the place, but I hope you got like a few insights from it.